Hi everyone, hope you've enjoyed your morning of EntoSci so far and you've got an exciting afternoon of talks to listen to as well. I'm Jen and I'm going to give you a little talk about how I got into insects and general ecology and have a look at some of my past experience and what I'd like to get into in my current job. So this is just a quick outline of my talk. I'm just going to give you a little background about my studies and my past work experience, show you some of the Bilberry Bumblebee project that I've worked quite a bit on, and I can share links, I think, for any more information on that. And then future being my current job at JBA Consulting, I'll just give you a bit more information about the kind of work I've been up to there. So as you can see, I've always been interested in being outside and insects with this slightly scary face paint that I've got on there in the second picture when I was younger. So these are some of the academic background and institute backgrounds that I've got working in ecology and invertebrates. Now, I did an undergraduate in ecology at Aberystwyth University, which is a lovely place to study, with this picture of the Snowdonia National Park in the top left, but you also have the sea coastal environments around there. So that was one of the main reasons that I chose it with ecology as a background, the accessibility of all of these amazing habitats very close by to the university. So for my third year project, I was aiming to do something on pollinators or insects in general, but I actually chose to do general invertebrate study, which was looking at gastropods, so slugs and snails, as your standard garden pests, and trying to find a more environmentally friendly way to help reduce the damage they do to crops like lettuces. So this was actually quite successful and kind of cemented my love of invertebrates, if you will. And then from here onwards, I've not looked back. So in the summer between graduating Aberystwyth and starting my master's in entomology at Harper Adams, which is just the study of insects, I carried out a couple of months' work at Atkins in their ecology group. A lot of this was doing reptile and newt surveys, which sounds fascinating, and it was. If you get that chance, definitely take it, as well as being very interested in insects and invertebrates. I'm always quite enthused by the slightly stranger groups like reptiles and amphibians that people don't really study very much. So this is some of the insects I managed to sneak a look at whilst I was supposed to be doing reptile surveys. Of course, they didn't mind too much, or they wouldn't have invited me back again on another survey. So moving on to my Bilberry Bumblebee project, my true first big project in insect conservation. So this was a project run by the National Trust in Shropshire, looking at conserving this species. And I will just give you a quick roundup of the main findings and the aims that we achieved. So we raised awareness for the bumblebees because they're not as well-known a species at all. They're in quite restricted areas. I'll show you a map of their hotspots in a moment. Some of the awareness projects that we carried out was I ran a natural history live talk for about an hour at the FSC online, and you can find this on YouTube if you're interested and want to get a bit more information about the project. But we also had our launch event at the National Trust Cafe about a couple of days before full lockdown ensued, so that was quite well timed to talk to some people and get people excited about it. We also ran some little local competitions when we were able to during lockdown. with people that had seen the bilberry bumblebees being able to wear this badge in the top corner nice and proudly to show off and educate people. This is a map of the bilberry bumblebee distribution across the UK. So as you can see, it used to be more widely distributed, but is now restricted to these hotspots in Scotland, mostly in North Wales and Shropshire are the key areas. So the project was aimed to produce a baseline distribution of this species across the Shropshire Hills, specifically along the Long Wind, as it was known that they were already present stiper stones. So this is the baseline data, and it seemed to follow the literature which suggests that the species really prefer heathland habitats with or without bracken. So you can see the highlighted habitats in the bottom corner of this slide. And they also, interestingly, did also use some improved grassland, which is the light green patch with four points of data. And this lines up well with what literature says, and I've got some example pictures of habitats that species have been found in. This is some examples of the habitats these species like to use. So I've actually realised I've got this the wrong way around, so you just have to bear with me. But on the right you have bilberry heather mosaic, which is the most popular habitat for them to be in most of the time. This is where you'll probably survey these species. Wet flushes is when, if for example you've had a very dry summer, this is where the plants that these bees will use will still be flowering for longer. And wildflower pasture is very important in seasons when on the heathland flowering is reduced because of the time of season. Diet, it can be quite generalist with some preferences. So especially this varies seasonally. So as I mentioned before, you have the wildflower meadows which may be used later in the summer when things aren't flowering as much on the heathland. But as bilberries are so important, sometimes the second late flowering is really key for the populations of the next year. They've also seem to use a lot of birdsfoot trefoil, clovers and thistles. After my master's degree, I started a placement as a seasonal ecologist for about 6 months at Jacobs. This is a civil engineering company which has their own group of ecologists as Atkins did. Now, for most of this, I was getting some experience doing survey coordination, which is really important to get some admin experience and also help the projects run as they should do. But on the surveys that I was able to attend, I did a lot of neat surveys, and again I made sure to have a look out for the invertebrate species that I could find. So one particularly exciting species was I found a great diving beetle larva in a newt bottle trap. So this is this funny looking picture on the bottom left that you can see next to the newt. On some other surveys when we were walking around and preparing where to put the bottle traps, also found a couple of mining bee species and wolf spiders, which are everywhere, especially in March. So it's a good time to find them now. It was my first bit of proper freelance work that I did. So I did a ecology survey for a local primary school, and this involved putting all of my knowledge of how to survey invertebrates and other groups as well, including birds and plants, together. This was really interesting because I got to see quite a good diversity of species, and that was in April, so perfect time is to get out is now. I'd also say that learning a bit of botany, even if it's only the common species, is really, really key, because then you can learn a bit about which plants pollinators like, or which a specific caterpillar was most likely to be found on. For example, garlic mustard is the food plant of orange tip caterpillars. And finally, my current job working at JBA Consulting is as an assistant ecologist. So this is my first proper survey job. And luckily, they're paying me to do a load of surveying to carry the company forward in invertebrate knowledge. So I'll be doing this site assessment using invertebrates in the summer, which is an FSC course, and it probably would be quite interesting if anybody is interested to join along. So I've been lucky enough to get out in the nice sunny weather that we've been having recently and do some habitat surveys, which I also managed to take a couple of breaks to have a look at the insects that have been present, but I'm also able, and I have 4 weeks worth of invertebrate surveys coming up this summer, which I am very excited about because this doesn't normally happen in ecology. Normally you bring in a separate consultant to do all of the invertebrate surveys and report back, so it's very exciting that we actually get to do it as the ecologists in the main company. And these are just some of my finds on various surveys that I've done whilst I've been at JBA. Now, this was just the final slide to say entomology and ecology do go very well hand in hand, and this is just a summary of some of the jobs related to ecology with insects that I've contributed to. And really, if you want to get into it, invertebrates and insects are everywhere. You just have to look and ask if you've got a manager that you think might support you in learning these skills or training, and in future at university or whilst you're doing your studies. That's really key too. Somebody, if you find the right person, somebody will come and ask and know how to answer your questions. But I'd say some key skills would be to get to know some GIS software. Like QGIS has been very important in the map that I made for the bumblebees earlier, and also just in general it's nice to have a little map of what you've seen and where. So I've also used my experience to help carry out technical notes. So I've written and got back into the literature of specific beetles or bees and just had a day or two of just reading about one species, which is really nice. I've also had to look at options appraisals, which are suggesting impacts that different mitigation or different building strategies might involve. This is really good to keep up your knowledge of different groups and how they respond to different changes. So as well as the surveys that I've mentioned, I've also had to review a couple of reports, which is nice to have a look at how they're laid out and how they should really be written, and do some desk studies, which is lovely to see when there's records of quite scarce or rare species in the area and you get to have a good read into those. Okay, so that's everything. Thanks very much for listening, and do send me an email or tweet me if you want any more information or you have any questions. Thanks very much. Bye.